All right, so continuing on with light color array, I'm going to make new additions and yeah, talk about um, various various aspects and various lists, and yeah, describe them and talk about them. Okay, so let's get into the arcs first. Okay, so the first arc I want to talk about is athleticism and fitness, or fitness. Okay, and with athleticism, you can think of this as a way of being in very good physical shape and in very good command of your physique, and you can think of this in terms of the aesthetics of human form, and you can think of this in a way that you feel good physically and mentally when you're in um, a good athletic form and fit. So you can think of this in the sense of imagining the human form in a way that is slim, fit, and athletic. I think that creates an interesting aesthetic of the human form, and it makes us feel on top, and it makes us feel good about ourselves. Okay, so that was athleticism or fitness. So the next arc I want to talk about is togetherness, and this, you can think of this in the sense that in the sense of finding connections with others, in the sense that you never feel alone, in the sense that there are others who are with you, and um, yeah, there is that sense of togetherness with them. Okay, so after togetherness is the arc of, I want to talk about the arc of inherence. And with inherence, there is the concept of inherent qualities. And these are things that are yours, and there is, it's just who you are. It is what makes you you, and it is these great things that are you, and it's what um, it's just something that who you are. Okay, so it's just something that I quickly wanted to talk about. And okay, so after, the next arc is aviation, or flight, or soaring, or exaltation. Okay, and I think this is somewhat self-explanatory, and you can kind of think in what way you want to perceive this idea or this concept of soaring and exaltation. Okay, so I think it's an interesting way of, I don't know, moving in some sense of upward movement in an exalting sense. Okay, so yeah. So the next arc I want to talk about is, and this is a pretty large topic in and of itself, but I want to mention this, maybe say some thoughts on this. And yeah, so this is qualia in the sense of all the, mm, this is hard to describe because, okay, but okay, I think this is a pretty large topic, so I think I'm going to just make a mention of this for now. Okay, and yeah, maybe I'll really talk about it at some other point, but I want to at least mention this. Okay, qualia. Okay, so these are the arcs for now, and so let's get into the motifs. Okay, so the first motif I want to talk about is intricate coins. And I think coins are, they have their own very beautiful aesthetic. And I think with intricate designs and beautiful ways in which you can imagine and design coins, I think they can be very beautiful. They can, they have their own interesting aesthetic, and you can imagine all kinds of ways, all kinds of materials and colors and transparencies, maybe, and reflections, all kinds of surfaces, and so many different ways where you can design coins, different, um, yeah, so many ways which you can imagine it. I think there are lots of ways where you can think of very beautiful and intricate coins. Okay, so the next motif I want to talk about, I'm just going to make a mention of this, and then yeah. So this motif is milk. Okay, so just wanted to make a mention, and then okay, let's get to the next one. So the next motif is, this is kind of an interesting one. It is sound of a train in the distance. Okay, if you have ever sort of heard or experienced this, it has a very distinct way about it. Okay, so there's something very fleeting about this sound and that whole aesthetic. Maybe it's, you can imagine late at night hearing the sound of a train far off in the distance. I think it's an interesting, elusive, fleeting kind of feeling that it creates. Okay, so I just wanted to quickly mention that. Okay, so the next motif after this is a very dark, stormy night. Again, an interesting, you can imagine all the sounds, imagine the sort of chaos, imagine the darkness, imagine how late and dark the weather is outside. Maybe there's barely much you can see. So imagine the uh, kind of, the, I don't know if I mean this in a good way, imagine the good kind of loneliness that you might feel, and maybe you have the company of someone in this kind of atmosphere and this kind of ambience. Okay, I think it's an interesting sort of ambience that it creates. A very dark, stormy night. Okay. So the next motif is, and this is a very, very interesting one. This is chromatic note, and I mean this in a metaphysical sense. Okay, so a chromatic note is something that is completely, I think this has very, this concept and this metaphysics of chromatic note, it is very vast in its scope. Okay, so it is something that is kind of one off, there's something off about it, but it's off in such an artistic way that it creates an entirely immense effect in an aesthetic sense. Okay, so you can imagine this in all kinds of contexts, what this concept of a chromatic note is to you. Okay, I think it's a very interesting concept, and yeah, I wanted to quickly mention this. Maybe I think this might make more sense when you see this within various contexts in which this would make sense. Okay, a chromatic note. Okay. Okay, so the next motif is deep midst of absolute nowhere. I think this is an interesting place to be. Okay, imagine being in the middle, in the midst of absolute nowhere. You're in the middle, but you're so far away from everything else. What kind of a place is this? How have you, maybe this is some kind of a dream, maybe where you are in the middle of absolute nowhere. Who will you meet here? Who will you find? What will you find? In what kind of way are you here? What exactly is going on in deep in the midst of absolute nowhere? Who might you meet in this place? What might you see in this place? Maybe it's something unimaginable. Maybe it's something so different from what you could think of. I think it's an interesting place to be. Okay, I think more can be said about this, but yeah, I think I've talked about it enough for now. Maybe I'll talk more about it, okay, in various contexts, in various places, which could be described as deep in the midst of absolute nowhere, okay? So many different ways you can visually imagine this, and also in terms of concepts, okay? All right, so the next motif is mansion of light. So I've talked about the motif of a mansion before. Imagine a mansion of light. In what ways you might imagine this? Imagine the aesthetics of this. And yeah, so many different colors and reflections and refractions, transparencies, and the way this light might speak to you, and being in that mansion, how does that affect your mental creativity? So I think it's an um, interesting motif, and you can visually imagine this in various ways. Okay, so all right, so the next motif is energetic amplification. Okay, and I want you to think what this intuitively means to you. Think of also in terms of light. How might you imagine energetically getting amplified? Like, what does that mean? It, again, there might be a concept of enlightenment and exaltation in this, okay? So imagine, is this about visuals? Is this about mental state? Is this about a certain aesthetic? So, but I think there's a great concept here of energetic amplification, okay? So think about what this intuitively might mean to you, okay? So the next motive is, and this is kind of self-explanatory, I don't know, I'll see, okay. So this is air control, air dominance, air superiority, air supremacy, and command of the skies, okay? So imagine, we've talked about soaring, we've talked about exaltation. So imagine what these concepts mean to you, okay? I'll say it again. Air control, air dominance, air superiority, air supremacy, and command of the skies, okay? And we've talked about gods and goddesses. Can you find some kind of a connection here? We've talked about VTOL jets. Think what this means, okay? But I think it's an interesting motive. It's an interesting concept. Okay. So the next motive I want to talk about is aerodromes or aeropads. And these are, you can kind of imagine this in the sense of, imagine this in a new innovative way. In what way would you personally imagine this in a personal sense? Okay. Imagine, we've talked about the VTOLs. We've talked about, okay, yeah, imagine various structures. Imagine the various hangars. Imagine these VTOLs. Imagine all other various structures and spaces that are present in this aerodrome or aeropad. Okay, so this would be a very interesting uh, area in terms of architecture. Lots of beautiful and new innovative ways of imagining this, okay? So an interesting motive. All right, so these are the motives for now. I think these were some interesting things to think about. So I want to add to the Pantheon now, okay? So something I want to say about Pantheon is when you imagine these gods and goddesses, imagine them as youthful, okay? There is that youthfulness in them. I think this, yeah, I think I kind of wanted to mention this, okay? So The addition I want to add right now is chromo and chroma. These are a male and female god and goddess, okay? And you can imagine their body, their form, as a pattern of colors. Imagine these colors moving and blending, becoming interesting, changing, and imagine the movement of these colors, these bright, vivid colors, okay? And something I want to add about them is they communicate in glossolalia and music, and the kind of music that is not with words, okay? This music is a direct type of moving music, okay? And that's how they communicate, that's how they speak, through glossolalia and this type of nonverbal music. So imagine, visually imagine these slim god and goddess. Imagine their bodies made out of these beautiful, vivid, moving colors, and imagine them speaking in glossolalia and music. What might they say to you? Like what? How does it feel when you understand something that they say to you with music? Like we like talk with words. Imagine speaking with music. Imagine speaking with glossolalia. Completely new sounds. And what is it like to hear things and understand things spoken to you in this way? Imagine these beautiful god and goddess. And what kind of beautiful things could they say to you? How would you how would you feel when this intelligence speaks to you? Okay, so I think these are interesting additions to the Pantheon. So these are the additions I have for now. I might add new things to this. So I think these were kind of some interesting things that I wanted to talk about. So let me know what you think. Let me know which of these appeal to you. And like I said, I will add more things to this. So yeah, these were the lists for now. And I think these were some interesting, we talked about some interesting emotions and aesthetics and concepts and emotions, okay? And some interesting metaphysical ideas with these as well. Imagine in various metaphysical ways and contexts that you can imagine all of these things, okay? So yeah, that's kind of it for this video. Let me know what you think. Let me know which of these you found interesting. So yeah, that's it for this video. I'll make additions afterwards. And yeah, that's it for this video, and I'll see you in the next videos. Okay, bye.